Hi guys, I've just come back from traveling in Malaysia, and I was there with my wife and we were celebrating our 20th anniversary, and we had such an incredible time. And what made it particularly enjoyable and memorable for us, besides the great food and the weather and the fact that we're on holiday, is that we got to meet so many incredible people and hear their stories. And it's just the kind of the way we've tried to live our lives, an attitude that everyone has a story and everyone's story is important. And one of the things that we've learned about people's stories is that our individual stories, as important as they are, they're always caught up in a bigger story, that they're shaped, they're formed, they're defined by the bigger stories of our families, of our nations, of our political ideologies, of a whole bunch of other bigger stories that we can be part of. And Christianity has a story too, and maybe contrary to popular belief, it's not a story that's based on doing the right thing or on morality or on judgment, on who's in and who's out, who belongs and who doesn't belong. But I believe that Christianity is a story that's built fundamentally on relationships, flourishing relationships. And when I think about the story of Christianity, I like to think of it as the story of God, or the big story. And like any story, it starts at the beginning. So let me read to you from the first chapter of the Bible, Genesis chapter 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. Then God said, "Let us make mankind, or humanity, in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." So God created humanity in his own image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female, he created them. God saw all that he had made, and it was good. And there was evening and there was morning, the sixth day. So this is the first part of the big story. And in the first part of the big story, there's three main points. The three main points are that God is creator, that humans are made in the image of God, and that God made everything perfect, especially relationships. And so if you think about stories in general, movies or books that you read, it's pretty common for the beginning of stories to set up who the characters are. And it's no different in the big story. We see who God is. God is shown to be the creator. And we see who humans are. We see who humans are fundamentally. Humans are so many different things, but fundamentally, humans are creatures, beings made in the image of God. And that's the point that we're going to focus on our discussion today. So there's lots of implications. And there's three that I want to point out to you, three implications of what it means to be made in the image of God. And there's more, and maybe we can talk about that as well. And please share them with me. So because we're made in the image of God, the first implication is that all human life has value, regardless of what we do, or regardless of what society says is valuable, or what society says is useful or beautiful. You know, we're always being told all the time by voices in society, the whole advertising industry, our family, our friends, our workplaces, we're always being told all the time what we need to do, what we need to own, or what we need to look like to be accepted. And it's not just the society, the voices of society saying these things of what we need to do or own or look like to be valuable, but sometimes it's our own voice. We think, oh, I need to do this job, or I need to own this set of clothing, or I need to be this tall or have this much muscles to be accepted and valuable and beautiful in society. And so sometimes it's our own voices. We buy into that, right? We buy into this idea that we need to be certain things or own certain things or look a certain way to be valuable. And sometimes we feel like we have lower value or little value or even no value because of what we've done. Maybe we've done something in the past, or we failed in the past, or maybe it's not what we've done. Maybe it's what's been done to us. Maybe we've been hurt by someone, or rejected by someone, or abused by someone, or just treated in a bad way. Maybe those things that we've done or that have been done to us has reduced our value in our own eyes. But no matter what we've done, or no matter what's been done to us, no matter what we own or what job we do, or no matter what we look like, regardless of what society says, according to the big story, according to God's story, we all have value. And we all have value because we are made in the image of God. And I think that maybe we kind of grasp at this idea a little bit. We kind of reach out for it in our society when we feel for others and we have empathy for them and we want to help them. You know, I know so many people, Christians and non-Christians, who are involved in issues of social justice and human rights, or they're simply taking the time to connect with others who are different to them. You know, for me, according to this big story of God, which makes sense of my life, how I live my life. For me, according to the big story, when I see someone treating human life as valuable, especially when they're treating a human being as valuable when our society says they're of less value, when I see that happening, I think, you know what, that's something God's doing. God's doing something there, and I want to partner with that someone. It doesn't matter if they're a Christian or not a Christian. If they're treating someone with value that our society says has no value or has lower value, then I go, God's at work there, and I want to partner with them. And I actually might even completely disagree about why human life has value. Maybe that person isn't a Christian. Maybe they don't believe that humans made in the image of God. And that's fine. From the way I live my life and the story that I live my life by, I want to partner with what I believe God is doing through that person. I'm not trying to win an argument, I'm trying to convince them. I just go, you know what? You're treating people with value, and that's a good thing. That's a God thing, and I want to partner with that. So that's the first kind of implication of human beings being made in the image of God according to the big story, according to God's story. The second implication is that if we're made in the image of God and God is a creator, then we are also creative. And when we are creative, and we can be creative in so many different ways, the classical ways or even very niche ways, but when we are creative, we more clearly image God. And we've already explored this in our previous discussion, but we already explored this question of how do you feel when you are in the zone creatively? You know, it's not uncommon, and I've talked to different people about this. Hey, how do you feel when you're in the zone creatively? When you're being creative, when you're expressing yourself creatively, how do you feel? And so some people go, you know, when I really lose myself in that creative moment, I actually feel connected to something bigger than me. I feel like that there's a connection taking place. It's not uncommon to feel connected to something bigger, something transcendent than ourselves when we are creative. And for me, that makes sense in this big story because we are made in the image of God, who is a creator. And the third implication of what it means to be made in the image of God is that because we created in the image of God, we were created in the image of God for a reason. We were created in the image of God to represent Him. We're meant to be little images of who God is and represent God to the rest of creation. So because we're created in the image of God to represent God and to cultivate His creation, our work actually is honorable. I mean, there's so many, you know, our jobs are valuable and meaningful. That's what I want to say. Our jobs are valuable and meaningful. And there's a way to see our work as a way just to pay the bills. And that's fine. That's necessary. There's no problem with seeing our jobs as just a way to pay the bills. Maybe you hate your job. That's okay. I've hated many jobs that I've done in my life. But there's a different way to see our work according to the big story. Even as we want to get another job, even as we want to aspire to something else, there's a way to see our current work. And that's this idea that it is valuable and it's meaningful and it's part of what we were made for. We were made to represent God, cultivating His creation. And so I want to ask these questions. How does our work contribute to flourishing in the world? So according to God's story, how can we ask, maybe it's even a small way, maybe we have to think really creatively to think of how our work does contribute to flourishing in the world. But how does it? Because that's what we were made for, according to the big story. How does it cultivate creation? How does it take resources and repackage them to add to human flourishing? And how does it allow an expression for the image of God in us? That's really, I suppose, the crux of the question. How is the work that I'm doing, even as it's just a stepping stone to something else, perhaps, how does it allow this job that I'm doing an expression of the image of God in us? And that's just a way to reframe our work based on this story that claims that we're made in the image of God. So let me ask you these three questions for discussion. If the big story is true, how does it make you feel that we are made in the image of God? How does it make you feel? Does the claim that you are made in the image of God make sense of anything that you felt in your life? Maybe at different points in your life you felt certain things. And now that I'm saying, you know what, the Bible claims, the story of God claims that we're made in the image of God. Does that make sense of how you've reacted to different people in your life or different situations that have gone on? Next question. What are some of the advantages for treating people like they're made in the image of God? What does it benefit me? And what does it benefit the other person? What does it benefit society that I treat other people like they're made in the image of God? That they have value no matter what they've done, no matter what they look like, no matter the, you know, if they tick the boxes of what society says is valuable or useful. What advantages does society gain from me treating someone like they're made in the image of God? But not just what are the advantages, what are the potential disadvantages for me or for society? I don't know. What are some of the alternatives? If we're not going to treat people like they're made in the image of God, how are we going to treat people? What are some of the alternatives? And what's the foundation behind that? And then the final question, we've kind of touched on this already. How does our work, and this could be paid work or unpaid work, how does our work contribute to flourishing in the world? How does it cultivate creation? How does it allow an expression for the image of God in us? And this is just a way to get us to reframe the way that we treat our work. Sure, we can treat it as a way to pay the bills, that's fine. Sure, we can treat it as a stepping stone to something else. But if the big story is true, how can we also see that there's an aspect of allowing the image of God to be expressed in our work? So I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on that. Thanks, guys.